find some real valuable information with the presentations that are given today. You should all know that this will be recorded, if you haven't just heard that. So I hope that's okay with you. It will be available for you at the end of the program along with the slide deck. So we can make those available after the end. I just want to give you a little bit of background about our organization. For those of you who aren't familiar with Action Innovation Network, I'm Joan Popolo, the Executive Director at Action, and we are a nonprofit organization. We're an organization of technology business incubators that are located throughout the New England region. And our incubator members are supporting early stage companies in the areas of life science, clean tech, robotics, advanced materials, ocean and maritime, and aerospace. So pretty broad industry sectors that we support. We have had about a 3 going on 4-year relationship with Northeastern. We're very happy to say. And I am actually a XN sponsor of one of the students coming out of the XN program. And we've been very happy with that relationship, which is now over 2.5 years old. So I hope you'll be able to take advantage of some of these programs like we have. So what we're going to do here this morning is I'll briefly start with intros from the presenters that you'll hear about. You'll find more deep bios of theirs on the Eventbrite page. So I'm not going to go through all that in a lot of detail. But then around 11:10, we're going to have breakout rooms. So what you'll hear in the presentations will spark your interest, and we would like you to join one of the breakout rooms that is of most interest to you. You may have brought a project with you in mind in listening to this presentation, so we hope you do. And during the breakout rooms, you'll have more one-on-one time to get your questions answered and learn more about those programs specifically. So the breakout rooms, as Aspa had just mentioned, are going to be the Costas Research Institute, the Global Resilience Institute, the Co-op program, and the XN projects. So as you're listening to the presentation, we'd like you to add your name or add what interest you have in which breakout room, so that in the end, Tarandeep will be able to place you in the breakout room. So around 11 o'clock, we'll all be doing that. And that'll give us a really good amount of time to have more one-on-one conversations with the faculty and those that are presenting for Northeastern. So just briefly, I see Michael Hansen has joined now. Michael is our program manager at Action Innovation Network. Michael, do you want to say a few words about the programs as you know them?
Yes, thank you, Joan. We believe these programs and resources offered by Northeastern University are a high-value resource that can benefit incubator organizations and the startups they work with. These programs are an opportunity to connect the talent within the Northeastern University community with the organizations in the Action Innovation Network that are seeking talent. The organizations and students that are collaborating through these programs will benefit from the many value propositions that these programs deliver. And we would like to thank the Northeastern University team for their support and for taking the time to share additional details about these programs and how to utilize them. Thank you.
Great. Now I'll do some very brief introductions and then we can start the presentations. This will be in the order of the speakers. So first up, we're going to have James Boyle, and James is the Director of Employment Engagement in Northeastern University's Office of Employer Engagement and Career Design, where he develops and implements strategic talent acquisition and workforce solutions for industry partners. Followed by James, we'll have Peter Boynton, who is the CEO of Costas Research Institute, otherwise known as KRI, and a professor of practice at Northeastern University. KRI provides a co-located research model bringing together university, industry, and government labs to accelerate technology transition, a venture creation center for early stage companies, and a clinical COVID testing lab. Followed by Peter, we'll have Scott Pickens, who is the Director for Marketing Development Operations and a Distinguished Corporate Fellow at Northeastern's Global Resilience Institute, as well as the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Arlington Healthcare Group. And then after Scott, we'll have Aspa Papanastiu, who together with James Boyle will be presenting, and is the Associate Director of Global Partnerships at Northeastern University's Office of Employer Engagement and Career Design. And Aspa leads the development of global collaborations by presenting a holistic value proposition, talent, co-op, and research, both US and global. And then we'll have Laura Engel and other faculty members. Laura is the Associate Director of Experiential Network, XN. She leads a team of externally facing university relationship managers in the sourcing and embedding of virtual experiential projects, or the XN projects, into Northeastern's academic programs and courses. So after their presentations, like I said, somewhere around 11:10, we're going to break out into the separate rooms where you'll get more information about those. So hope you enjoy the program. After the breakout rooms, I should say, we'll all be brought back into the main room and we'll just have some closing comments and that'll be the end. With that, I'd like James Boyle to start with his first slide. So Diana will be managing the slides, yes? So if you want to bring those up.
Great. Thank you, Joan, and thanks, Michael. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Happy spring. It's good to see everybody. We really enjoy this partnership with Action, and it's been a really good, I think, synergy over the last 3 or 4 years, as Joan mentioned. And these events really help both groups collaborate more strategically and exchange ideas and lead to some really good partnerships. So as Joan mentioned, I'm the director of the employer engagement team here in Northeastern's Office of Employer Engagement and Career Design. And what I'm going to do with this first slide is just give folks a brief overview of Northeastern, who we are, where we started and where we are now. Some of you in the audience could be alums. If you are, it's great to see you. Some of you might not know much about Northeastern, so that's really what the intent is in terms of kicking things off. So very briefly, so what we do at Northeastern in many cases has evolved over the last 100 or so years, but in many cases has remained the same. So we've been around as an institution located on Huntington Ave in Boston, really for well over 100 years. We started out, as it says here on the slide, back in 1898, and really from the get-go, as an institution, we established ourselves as a university that prides itself in experiential learning. So we've been providing our students for the last 120 plus years with experiential learning opportunities as a way for students to really complement their academic requirements with some real-world work experiences that align with their goals and aspirations. So early on, in the early days of Northeastern, we were working with local companies like the Boston Rail Company and the Boston Gas Company to give our students an opportunity to do some work experiences to help them pay for their education at Northeastern. And over the last 100 years or so, the whole notion of experiential learning, which is rooted in our co-op program, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, it's evolved over time, but at its core, the spirit of giving our students that experience to work with industry to complement their academic requirements has remained the same. And as you'll hear, throughout the course of the morning, there has been some evolution in that, but the core foundation, the DNA of who we are as an institution has remained the same. So we started out as this kind of humble institution, humble university, and we have grown significantly over the last 100 years. We are now a global institution, a truly global institution. But it's important to point out that even though we've grown and we're a tier 1 research institution, and we have 75,000 applications for 2,800 freshman seats a year, we've grown in popularity and in significance and in impact. We still are closely aligned to our local Boston roots, our Roxbury roots, and that's kind of a unique feature of Northeastern. Even though we've become this really important entity, we are still deeply rooted in our humble upbringing. We are located, our main campus is located in Boston, but we have approximately 10 campuses spread across Massachusetts, the United States, and globally. Our most recent regional campus, as we call them, was established in London last year, but we have campuses in Canada, with one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. We have campuses out on the West Coast in San Francisco and Seattle and San Jose. We have a campus in Portland, Maine, called the Rue Institute. Our first regional campus opened in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there are plans for more. So as you can see, we started out as this humble institution, and now we've grown into a significant player in the higher education and research world. Again, we're going to talk about some of the things that have really defined who we are as an institution from a co-op perspective and experiential learning perspective, but we thought it would be important to kind of set the stage for the audience, to give you a sense of who we are, what we've become, and what we really want to strive for in the years to come. So it's an exciting time to be at Northeastern, and if you're associated with the university, join us for the ride. And if you're interested in becoming a partner, that's really one of the reasons why we're here today. So I'll pause here, and I think we're going to either turn it back to Joan or turn it over to Peter. So
Peter can go right ahead.
Awesome.
Thanks, Joan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very
Hello,
well.
can you? Very good, thank you.
Very good.
So I am looking at slide number 3 now, the Costas Research Institute for Homeland Security, and I'll be giving a brief description of what we do there and on the Burlington campus. And thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to join the group today. So Northeastern has a satellite campus in Burlington, Mass, about 20 miles north of the main campus in Boston. The satellite campus is named the Northeastern University's Innovation Campus in Burlington, Mass. It's a 14-acre campus. It was rejuvenated, if you will, when the Costas Research Institute was built in 2011. And since that institute was built, the campus has undergone substantial expansion in activity, research programs, research partners, and the number of people on the campus. And we do have a model that we have found to be very successful at the Costas Research Institute on the Innovation Campus. We have been fortunate to be able to establish very capable research facilities. We'll go through some of those on the next slide. But our fundamental model is this, that we seek co-location and co-responsibility, if you will, for our research. And what we mean by that is we physically co-locate faculty or university labs with industry labs, with government labs on the campus. We currently have about 22 industry partners embedded on the campus. Those are split into 2 groups, which we'll go into more detail in another slide. One group are established industry partners like the Rogers Corporation, AeroVironment, VRC Metal Systems, and the other group are early stage companies. And we have different models for how we work with them. But in the case of the industry partners, what we mean by co-responsibility is where industry partners fund our faculty research, each of those research projects are co-led by an industry PI and a university PI. And similarly with our government programs, with what we refer to as the mission agencies that are co-led with program managers and faculty PI, and often involving industry PIs as well. We have been able to develop a process on the Burlington campus with KRI where we describe as moving at the speed of business. And this includes building out new facilities. The most recent example is our latest research building, 105,000 square feet, went from a shovel in the ground to certificate of occupancy in 13 months. And we found that in order to successfully engage with embedded industry on our campus, partnering with our faculty and our government programs, we really have to achieve that move at the speed of business principle on that campus. And we also have a high trust environment where we have learned that when we embed with industry, we have to understand and respect proprietary boundaries, and also with our government programs, secure facilities as well, and be able to merge and blend that with our university research, which has been quite successful. So sort of the goal of this model, this co-location, co-responsibility model, is to have a process whereby we can accelerate the transition of world-class academic discoveries coming out of our faculty labs, using the industry partners to help us transition those discoveries into usable technology innovations and commercialization. Next slide, please. So I am on the slide now with titled Labs. And I'll just briefly describe some of our labs. We have a very substantial drone testing lab, which we call Expeditionary Cyber and Unmanned Aircraft Systems. It was built both by the Office of Naval Research and by Northeastern University. You can see on the left side a photo inside part of our test facility. That is a very large Faraday cage and anechoic chamber that gives us excellent isolation to test drones and antennas and other objects within the space across the RF spectrum. It's a very large anechoic chamber, but certainly not the only one. We also have adjacent to that a even larger outdoor netted cage for drone testing. It's 1.8 million cubic feet, and it's certainly not the only one, but it's a very large one. And yet, we think that the facilities are one of a kind in the country. And the reason for that, even though they're not the only anechoic or outdoor netted cage, is because when we built them with a flight path between the outdoor GPS-enabled cage into the interior GPS-denied anechoic chamber. And this gives us an opportunity to test a very challenging environment for autonomous systems, whether for civil applications like emergency management and rescue inside buildings, or for national security purposes, where drones transition from GPS-enabled into GPS-denied inside the chamber. So that gives us a unique capability. One of our faculty has established the Wireless Internet of Things Institute, and that is right next to the Coliseum tool, which we won in a national competition with DARPA. Coliseum is the world's largest RF emulator. It's essentially a supercomputer with software-defined radios hardwired. It processes the equivalent of the entire Library of Congress every second. It allows us to model tens of thousands of radio transmissions over large geographic areas, understand the interferences, jamming, that sort of thing. And with the anechoic chamber allows us to also test those models over the air in the chamber. We have a cold spray lab, alternative to arc welding and additive manufacturing technology, essentially 3D printing for metal, that was built with the Army Research Lab, and we operate with an industry partner. We have the Asia Pacific Center of Excellence, 22 Asia Pacific nations working with our biopharmaceutical analysis lab. We have an advanced characterization facility with transmission electron microscope to characterize the results of our work. We built a COVID testing lab, CLIA certified COVID testing lab. We did that in the course of about 6 weeks, which was quite an example of our moving at the speed of business to provide testing for the university and others to support a safe reopening last fall. A magnetic materials lab, nanoscale fabrication lab, video analytics, and the largest structural testing lab of its type east of the National Earthquake Center is also located at KRI. And this provides us with an ability to participate in research programs across a very wide spectrum of technologies. Next slide, please. So I'm on competencies and industry partners slide. You can see on the left side here areas of technology that I was just referring to that we're involved with. The industry partners, the ones that are embedded are the Rogers Corporation. They've been on our campus now since 2014, and they are also a materials company. They produce most of the circuits for the 4G network, and it gives us a great opportunity to partner with them in the materials area. They've also built out a battery fab lab that has expanded the areas of collaboration with the university. AeroVironment is our newest large industry partner. They're the largest US-based manufacturer of drones. Been in California for 40 years and recently sought to establish an East Coast Center of Excellence for their work with drones, and selected KRI in the Innovation Campus, essentially because of our co-location model where they get exposed to many of our partners beyond just Northeastern. Raytheon is based at our institute along with BRC Metal Systems as well. And then there's a list of others that we work with as well. Next slide, please. I'm on our early stage company list now. So we started about 3 years ago with a very modest renovation of what had been an Army barracks building on the campus from the 1950s. We very purposely kept the costs of that renovation low so that it could support early stage companies. That's 10,000 square feet. We filled that with early stage companies about 1.5 years ago. And then we did another modest renovation of a former classroom wing that had been built by the university in the early 60s. And that has tripled our space for early stage companies. So we've gone from 10,000 square feet of space to 30,000 to support spin-outs and early stage companies. You can see from the list here the description of some of their areas. About 1/3 of our early stage are life sciences, and the rest are mostly sensing and detection technologies, and also a very high-tech agriculture startup as well. Since we have tripled our space, we now have space to expand from the current number. I think it's about 16 early stage companies with space for perhaps up to 40. So we're very much in a growth mode. We've had a number of Techstar winners elect to come to our campus rather than Cambridge or Kendall Square. And the reasons we're able to compete very effectively on cost, given our approach, how we renovate these older existing buildings, but it's also the partnerships on the campus that have been a real draw for these companies to come out and establish themselves on the Burlington campus working with KRI. Next slide, please. So I'm on the slide with example of university partners, and these are some of the universities we work with in the region and around the country. This is for research projects that sort of traditional university NSF, but also research programs that we have with the mission critical agencies. The third leg of our co-location model, if you will. And those are programs with the Army Research Lab, the Air Force Research Lab, the Office of Naval Research, and now more recently with NAVC as well. So I think that's it for the KRI and Burlington Innovation Campus presentation. And thank you very much. Back to Joan.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. Now we'll move to Scott Pickens, who will be giving you an overview of the Global Resilience Institute. Go ahead, Scott.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to have this chance to give you an introduction to Global Resilience Institute. We are one of the younger institutes at the university. We were founded in 2017, so we're just getting started into our fourth year. So resilience has been in the news a lot lately. Everybody's starting to use that word. We have a pretty broad definition, of what resilience is. We basically define it as the ability to manage disruption. Disruption can come from all kinds of causes, disruptions that are regularly in the news and that have, certainly been talked about recently, everything from storms, hurricanes, and so forth, wars, certainly pandemic disruption, to supply chain disruption. Just, recently the incident in Suez Canal. So, with a very broad definition of resilience, we also chose to try to help that across the globe. So there's nothing unambitious about our mission. So you can see here that, we do work in a number of areas and really are trying to help enhance resilience, in individuals, communities, enterprises, infrastructure systems themselves, and then by extension, across societies. So it's a very ambitious, we often wonder when we get up in the morning whether we bit off perhaps more than is reasonable, but we are having a great time trying to do it. Next slide, please. So we do this really across a number of areas that are highlighted on here. The big words at the top focus on applied research that helps communities and enterprises become more resilient so they can thrive and adapt in the face of inevitable shocks and disruptions. We believe that, resilience happens in a lot of different ways. What happens, of course, is that everything's interconnected. When there's a disruption, a shock of some kind, it's never isolated anymore. All of our global systems are, integrated and interconnected to the point where, a failure in the wrong spot has lots of cascading impacts. I think we've all seen a number of instances of that fairly recently. So these are a couple of the specific areas that we work in. We have an integrated resilience enhancement solution for communities. And then you can see we also have one for enterprises. What this is a broad methodology supported with, some technology and some tools. Basically, we go into a community and examine, how resilient that community is, how it could be more resilient. We look at economic factors, we look at social resilience, we certainly look at the infrastructure within the community. Similarly, but different, of course, when we get into enterprises and companies, it's a similar set of concepts, but the details are different. So there we look at, the functional processes and systems within an enterprise, what the functional capacity of that is and how it can be impacted by various shocks, and then we work with companies and enterprises of all kinds, not just businesses, but we work with them to try to sort out you know, where they have opportunities to enhance their resilience. And of course, you know, that's where you get into some of the interesting things that businesses worry about a lot, like how much investment is justifiable, if you will. So we've actually learned more recently that it's kind of like the total quality movement was 20 years ago. There was a lot of discussion about the cost of quality, and then companies figured out that that you really couldn't do without it. Resilience is very similar, and so a lot of the companies that we're working with now, it's with that in mind. You know, where to make the resilience investments. We're very big into resilience education and training. This takes several forms. The Institute works with the various colleges within the university, you know, to create resilience-based courses. And we're in the process of creating some resilience-based majors and programs within the university. But we also take the education outside the university. You know, we will do education and training for various levels of executive teams, management teams, and so forth. Certainly incident management and business continuity and recovery is a big area. A lot of planning goes into that, of course. And then the flip side of that actually is underneath there, where it talks about post-disaster assessment and advisory team. We have access to some of the world's leading experts in disaster management. You know, so we can bring a team in after a disaster to look at what went right in terms of its management, what went wrong, what lessons can be learned, and then, you know, obviously try to feed that back into the, you know, to the world's knowledge about this sort of thing so that we do better next time. On the lower left there, vetted resilience technology solutions. That's a marketing word, set of words that's really quite at and trying to develop innovations that are technology-based products, services, different things that are being developed in labs around the world to be able to enhance resilience in any of its aspects. So that's obviously a very big bucket. We spend a lot of time there. Building cyber resilience, you know, a subset, but an ever more critical, you know, area to work in terms of resilience. Everybody's aware that, you know, there's a lot of data at risk. Processes are shut down. You know, in my industry of background, the healthcare industry, you know, whole hospital, they, you know, pay a ransom and their information's released. There's a little less appreciation for the fact that cyber resilience and the next bucket down there, critical infrastructure, anymore is very much tied together. All of our water systems, energy systems, telecommunication systems, et cetera, are of course all now digitized. You know, all of the valves that run pipelines and you know, and so forth are connected to a computer somewhere. So the intersection of cyber and infrastructure is a very critical place to do a lot of work for us. Critical infrastructure, of course, includes all of those things I just talked about: energy, telecommunications, water, waste treatment. It also includes housing, roads, ports, you know, airlines, et cetera, et cetera. So those are, you know, sort of a summary set of eight big buckets where we spend a lot of time and do a lot of work. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of who we are. You know, our staff is relatively small. We're almost 30 people now, many of which are students, you know, postdocs included in there, of course. But one of our, you know, most important features is our network. You know, we realized early on that not only were we tackling something that was extremely interdisciplinary, but we were definitely trying to tackle something that, you know, really did have global implications. And at the same time, we wanted very much to be very practical. Our whole position is, you know, relative to the non-academic world, is to try to bring, you know, the expertise and experience that's in the academic world together with the expertise and experience that's in the external world. So we do have 110 resilience faculty experts that come from all 9 Northeastern colleges. Several of them are listed there, just to give you a flavor of the interdisciplinary nature of what we do. We, at the moment, have, I think it's about 35 now, distinguished fellows, real world practitioners from, as it says there, government, public, and industry sectors. I'm one example of that. You know, my entire career has been in business. You know, we really rely on our network of distinguished fellows, as well as our faculty affiliates, to support what we do as a staff, to really make what we do applicable in the real world. And then finally there, I had mentioned this before, our post-disaster assessment and advisory team selected 10 individuals with, you know, world-known, these are names you might know if you pay attention to who's managing the latest big disaster. You know, so this is really a world-class team of people that can come and figure out how to do it better next time. Next slide. And finally, this is, we're very proud of this. This is the Global Resilience Research Network that we spent the last 3 years getting up and running. This is something we did in collaboration with the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. But this is a set of, you know, international companies. These span every continent. Well, I don't think we have anybody in Antarctica yet, but we'll work on that. So it's nearly 40 different research institutes, you know, several companies in there. Obviously, some of these are independent of universities, some of them are universities. But these are the resilience experts across the globe. And, you know, we rely on this network and work closely with it in order to identify the latest and greatest innovations that can be brought to bear in resilience management, as well as obviously best practices. So a lot of collaboration happens across this network. So that's my introduction. I look forward to answering any questions when we get into Q&A and in the breakouts. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Scott. Now we're going to move right to the OSPA and the co-ops and XN programs. So feel free to go right ahead.
Thank you, Joan. I'll take the first swing here. So first, you know, Peter and Scott, I think their presentations really exemplify kind of the diverse nature of Northeastern. You know, we've grown, as I said earlier on, we've grown from this you know, early stage or, you know, university to something that's extremely dynamic and global focused. So I think that's a really good example. So in terms of experiential opportunities, this is one of our core features, one of our core distinguishing characteristics as an institution. You know, in experiential learning is driven by co-op, which most people I think are familiar with when they hear about Northeastern. But there are other experiential opportunities that students can partake in at Northeastern. Study abroad, the Experiential Network, and a whole host of other things. The XN program, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is just another innovative way to provide our students with experiential opportunities. I'm going to talk about co-op because that's kind of one of the key features. But again, there are other ways for students to gain some experiential learning while they're at Northeastern. So next slide, please. So again, folks are probably familiar with the concept of co-op at Northeastern. Essentially, but for those that are not familiar with it, I can give you some insight into it. Essentially, what co-op allows our students to do is to alternate between periods of academic study when they're in the classroom for a regular academic semester, with periods of full-time setting and go and work in organizations, typically for 6-month periods, and then they can come back to the classroom. And they can alternate those work experiences as many as 3 times while they're at Northeastern. So most of our students, most of our graduating seniors are graduating with anywhere between 12 and 18 months of really good full-time work experiences on their resumes as a result of co-op while at Northeastern. The biggest users of co-op at Northeastern are the 18,000 or so undergrad students, and about 94 to 95% of them are doing at least one 6-month experience while they're here. But we also have a significant graduate student population as well, and in many cases, those students will do co-op in some form or fashion. Our PhD students as well will do a version of co-op as well. So as you can see, the experiential model stretches across the entire learner population here at Northeastern. But again, at the co-op level, it's really driven by our undergrad students. And in most cases, these are 6-month paid full-time experiences. For years, these were on-site experiences because we wanted to give our students that real live experience of being in an organization to see how it works. But over the last few years, we need more remote opportunities, and certainly as a result of the pandemic, that has driven us, even more quickly into remote co-op experiences. So the vast majority of co-op experiences now are in remote fashion, and we anticipate that will be the case once we emerge from the pandemic. And also, as a result of the pandemic, we've instituted some flexible co-op options. So if an organization can't bring a student on for 6 months, but they can only do 3 or 4 months, we're being flexible there in that respect. There's some other things that we've adopted as a result of some of the barriers that the pandemic has created for employers who want to engage but may not have the full resources to do so. Just to give you a sense of the scale, so 12,000 plus students a year are going out on these co-op experiences, and the cycles run January to June and then July to December. So roughly will go out in that July to December or fall cycle, and then the other half will go out in that January to June or spring co-op cycle. We're working with over 3,000 companies that are hiring our students for co-op experiences. In Peter's slide, when he listed some of the partners that Costas is working with, I noticed just off the top of my head 4 or 5 companies that are also partnering with us through co-op. And these are organizations that range from Fortune 500 organizations down to small startup and early stage companies and everything in between. There's opportunities at all levels for our students to partake in co-op, and certainly there's a diverse selection of industries that we're working with. The majority of our students are doing their co-ops here in the United States, but as Aspa will allude to momentarily, we also have students that do co-op experiences outside of the United States. The final points I'll make is, from where I sit in the university, we're helping to support the partnership development opportunities for our co-op community. So we have roughly about 120 co-op advisors spread across the entire university, which is broken up into 9 separate colleges. Those co-op advisors work directly with their students to help them find co-op experiences during the course of the year. So as an employer, if you are interested in participating in co-op, ultimately you would be connected to a co-op advisor from the college in which you're looking to draw candidates from. And those co-op advisors really are the people that drive the program on a daily basis. They're getting their students inserted into opportunities. They're engaging with employers to create those opportunities. And they're the individuals that really will work with you at a very high level to make sure that your co-op experience is value add and beneficial. The final point I'll make is co-op is absolutely a pipeline for employers to bring on full-time students. The vast majority of the companies that we work with are leveraging co-op as a pipelining tool. So in many instances, those companies that are bringing a student on for 6 months will ultimately hire those students into full-time roles upon graduation. So it's a really, not only is it a beneficial experience for a student, some really good experience, but as an employer, it's a strategic step to ensuring that their pipelines are growing and are cultivated year over year. So with that, I will turn it over to Aspa, who's going to talk a little bit about the global side of co-op.
Global program is obviously a tad smaller. I wish we were sending thousands of students abroad, but for the moment, it is only about 600 a year. And we are everywhere. These opportunities were developed by our own job development efforts, or oftentimes students self-develop opportunities in their own countries or anywhere in the world. We are in 6 continents and 145 countries. So you can imagine the wealth of experiences from a cultural perspective and the exchanges between students and cultures. We could not have done this without our global alumni communities. Thankfully, Northeastern has developed about 15 international communities all over the world. And those are supporting our students either as a network while students are experiencing a global co-op in another country, or as employers themselves. They oftentimes will offer a spot in their own companies or connect us with other employers within the same country. So it's really a very vibrant community that has a multitude of roles and benefits. The Northeastern ecosystem offers also support in our endeavors. So my team, the global engagement team, is constantly developing new opportunities, but we could not have done so without the Global Experience Office, our International Safety Office, Office of Global Services, and the Off-Campus Housing and Support Services. And those 4 departments are vital to constantly give us advice and guidance regarding what is available around the world, especially in the last year. You can only imagine it has been very, very challenging with the pandemic. So guidance, support, visa advice, and of course, resources where students can stay when they're traveling abroad. So it is truly a very strong network where any global employer can reach out to Northeastern with an inquiry about the global program, and then very quickly, very swiftly, we can put together a global position. And there are some international members of Action, and definitely we are looking forward to connect and explore opportunities for partnership. I would say that because of the global nature of this program, the pipeline of talent is more particular. So for example, oftentimes in Europe, there will be opportunities for EU nationals to end up with a full-time offer. It can also happen in other parts of the world, but definitely it is not to the same level as on the domestic side of the co-op program. But once again, it can be a very successful endeavor. It can be a very successful interaction between a company and a student from the cultural exchanges, but also in addition to how things are done in the United States. So knowledge-based exchange on processes and academic experiences. So with that note, I would like to turn it over to my colleagues from the XN team, Laura Evangelista and our professor, Mark Almeida.
Thanks, Aspa. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us and sitting through, I think, the fourth or fifth chunk of the presentation with us. The XN program on the experiential partnership spectrum between Northeastern and our valued company partners represents a really low threshold way to engage with our students and our faculty. The XN projects are embedded directly in coursework. There are a few bullet points on the screen now about how we are the parameters under which projects are executed. It's very short little snippet professional experiences for our students, and hopefully a way for you to get some of these post-it note projects that are on your monitor right now taken care of. Projects are completed virtually. This was pre-COVID also. It allows us to be sort of location agnostic, pairing global employers with students in Boston or students on any of our regional campuses with companies all over the world. It's really exciting. It provides a flexible work schedule for both students and sponsors, about 6 hours a week per student, about 1 hour per week for the sponsors. And we have to call you sponsors because there's no pay exchange, so you're not technically employers in this engagement. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues Emily and Jen right now. They are our faculty consultants for XN. They can explain a little bit more how we put the projects in academically aligned courses. And then, yes, our lecturer, Mark Almeida, will describe a project that he recently embedded in his course. So Emily, thank you for taking it away.
Thank you, Laura, and the rest of the team for talking about the various opportunities at Northeastern. The XN program is particularly unique and special, and it's just a really great opportunity that's mutually beneficial for students and employer sponsors. With the structure within the academic confines of classrooms, we work to pair project types with the academic programs. You can see here some of the most common project types that we see sponsors contribute to XN. This includes, business strategies, data analysis and data analytics, fundraising for nonprofits, and then you also see more marketing, social media strategies, and so forth. We're really looking for projects that have a specific tangible deliverable that the students are going to be working on. And this translates directly into some of the academic programs that we support. Mark will be able to describe more about these in just a moment. And so some of the biggest academic programs at Northeastern that we support are corporate and organizational communication, nonprofit management and project management, international business. We keep talking about our global sponsors and employers. And then also get into some of the more robust regulatory affairs, health and so forth, and legal studies. So really, if you have a dream for a project, as Laura said, a post-it note project, there's really a great chance and an opportunity to convert that into an XN project. Jen and I will can talk more about various ideas if people want to stay behind and stick into the XN project room. If we could move to the next slide. So, really what we're looking here is we embed these projects within the classroom. I like to have Mark share more about his experience with working with XN and how it supports his students and their academic experience. Mark?
Sure. Thank you very much, Emily. So I'm delighted to spend a few minutes to just give you some quick highlights of how I've left an opportunity with my students. And I probably would just start by asking you to think about a spectrum of engagement. And that can go from an individual project all the way through having an entire class working on your behalf in support of one or several projects. And I'll give you a few quick examples. So even at Northeastern, when I first came to the university a couple of years ago, I found a need to drive some automation in some of my own processes that I was working within my organization. So through Laura's assistance, we had identified students, and over the course of about a year and a half, I engaged and had 3 different XN projects that supported, 2 were IT related, that brought efficiencies in how we scheduled students into their programs. And another one was marketing oriented, where it was about trying to streamline and ensure a better level of communication with a specific cohort of students. Taking that a little bit further, I actually, at the end of in the fall, last fall semester, the university even offers an experiential management course. I worked with an external employer, a nonprofit organization. I had a dozen students, and the company was looking to expand its market research into a whole market expansion idea beyond the Boston metro area. So I was able to actually take a dozen students, divide them up into 3 teams, segment the state of Massachusetts geographically, and then have those students conduct further market research, but also bring fresh ideas into how, from a social media perspective, the company could look at expanding its footprint beyond the Boston metro area. So just, I've got colleagues that have embedded them in some of the capstone courses as well, very targeted and very specific. So we can be as broad or as narrowly focused as you'd like us to be in some of the projects that we would undertake on your behalf. That's sort of the top of the waves. I'll join the XN breakout session if anybody has any additional questions for me then.
Thanks, Mark. Emma. And it's really important that XN, we embed these projects within the courses and have fantastic faculty like Mark who help guide the students through this real life work experience. And so we have over 400 courses that run XN every year. This really gives this pipeline opportunity to allow sponsors direct access to multiple students while still having the faculty oversight within the classroom. So it's a really unique, special opportunity, and would be happy to share more in the breakout rooms. I'd like to just pass it back to the main team now.
Thank you, everyone, for your presentations this morning. Very valuable, very insightful. Like I said, you will receive the slide deck so that you have these contacts if you want to talk in more depth with any of the presenters today. And now we'd like to organize the breakout rooms for any, let's see, Tarandeep is organizing the breakout rooms. Okay, here she is with a message. And you will be able to join which one that you like. Remember, we've got Costas Research Institute, Global Resilience Institute for any of those companies or organizations that are looking to form maybe research partnerships with Northeastern. And then we have the co-op program and the XN projects program. So hope to see you there.